All aboard!
Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening to Cannabis Karaoke, where we ask you to grab the mic and tell your story. Get inside info from today's most interesting cannabis pioneers, and from the first note to the end of the song, listen up as you get to hear the stories of success on Cannabis Karaoke. Welcome back to another episode of Cannabis Karaoke. I'm your host, Danny Keith, and it's a new week. It's another week of quarantine. It's another week of COVID. People, do your part, stay inside so we can get back to going outside and seeing our friends and watch sports, and everybody can be healthy. Today's show is a really good one because they're a first to market on a situation in the financial field that not a lot of people have figured out how to get it done. I'm talking today with co-founder of and CEO of Goldenseed, Scott Goldie, and then on the phone with us as well is Goldenseed's securities lawyer, Kendall Almerico. Welcome to the show, guys, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, and especially because it's out of Santa Cruz.
Hey, thank you for having us on the show. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You guys came out, about towards the middle of last year that you guys kind of started pushing?
Yeah, we started the company in December of 2017, and then we had some crops in 18, but we really started kind of statewide distribution towards August of last year, and then we just got approval for a pretty large cultivation that we started in February.
Congratulations on all that. And, for those that don't know, it takes, even though 2017 doesn't sound too far away, it probably feels like 10 years in the space of going through all the different regulatory changes and taxations and kind of playing whack-a-mole with the state on trying to stay in business. You guys also are the first and only cannabis company to be able to help me understand the public offering that you're going through, or the investment component that you guys are going through.
Well, I'll start, and then I'll let Kendall address it as well. Several years ago, there's a regulation of the Securities Act called Regulation A that came out, I believe, as part of the Jobs Act, and it's only really been able to be used over the last 3 years. We started looking at that for another business that we have, the Napa Valley Wine Train, and it didn't work out then. So when we were starting up Goldenseed, really in our second year, we approached Kendall again to see if he thought it would be possible, because the SEC is a federal agency, if he thought it'd be possible for our space, because we thought it would be great if it did work. I don't know, Kendall, if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, it was really interesting when Scott and everyone contacted me. Here comes a company that is heavily in the cannabis space, that has incredible products, that has a great, co-founder and great grower in JR, a well-known guy, creating premium products. But they also have this great management team, guys that actually know how to run businesses and grow businesses and do things the right way. And I had been approached by probably 100 or more cannabis companies about, hey, do you think that I could be the first one to get through the SEC and have the federal government, allow us to go out and sell stock to the general public? And I turned them all down. And when Scott called, I remember just, like the angels singing hallelujah, that finally there's a company that actually has all the pieces that they really need to take something like this to the federal government and say, hey, we want you, the federal government, to let us go sell stock to the general public, even though cannabis is illegal federally. And people thought we were completely insane doing that. But I knew from my dealings with the SEC that if it was the right company with the right products and the right management team and the right finances and who all did things the right way, someone was going to be the first. And I really felt confident it would be Goldenseed. And lo and behold, thankfully, the SEC was great to work with and qualified our offering, meaning we were the first private U.S. cannabis company ever to be allowed to go sell stock to anybody in the general public. Literally anyone can invest in the company, which has never been done before.
Yeah, when I watched, having watched your guys' path, being in town here and, talking with JR now and then, you have really assembled something that's, most of us that don't invest anything besides, like, let's say the traditional market or bonds, or has our 401k. I mean, we usually have somebody that helps us out. And in this space, it's a lot of private money that goes in. And a lot of times it's friends and family that come in first. And to get to what you guys are offering, you're offering everybody, I think, is it a minimum investment of $100 that you guys do?
Yes.
And
Yes,
then
that's correct.
is there a cap on that they can invest at?
Nope.
There's no maximum. I mean, ultimately, one of the little strange things in the law is that, if you're what we call an accredited investor, meaning someone who makes more than $200,000 a year or has a net worth of over $1 billion, it's totally unlimited as to how much you can invest. However, if you're not in that category, there is a limitation. You can only invest up to 10% of your income or your net worth. So it's actually a very good law from the perspective that, anyone in the general public can invest, and with ethical and good companies like Goldenseed, it's nice to know. But there might be some unscrupulous person out there who tries to do this, and grandma has her nest egg and they convince her to put everything into a company. Well, that's not allowed. It's a limitation of 10% for people that aren't accredited investors, which I think is a good limitation to have. And but the reality is that rarely comes into play. Most people are going to invest $100, $500, $1,000 in a company like this, and that's what's so cool about it is that as I always say, who doesn't want to own a weed farm? And you can be in Alabama where cannabis is completely illegal, and you can still own part of a weed farm for as little as $100. It's really, and that being something the SEC qualified, that's a really cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah, and following it, and I hope this isn't a disrespectful term, but part of your offering too is a little bit of a gamification, right? Like the more you invest, the more opportunities you have to be invited to different parties. Tell me a little bit about that.
What we really want to create is really a family of investors. And so by getting a collection of a lot of people, we're up to now over 1,500 people that have filed an application to invest. You really are creating a community of brand ambassadors for Goldenseed. So they're going to tell their friends and family about it. They're going to go to the stores and try to buy your product. Tell dispensaries they should carry your product. And it really, becomes this phenomena that's allowing us to get a national footprint, before any other cannabis company. We're literally today have investment or applications from 49 states, 1 U.S. territory, and 18 countries. So it's really helping us create the lifestyle brand that we want. We want to create based on this surf community coming out of Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and it's kind of if you think back to the world of I remember when I first started talking about the concept of crowdfunding to people back in the early 2010, at the part of the decade. People would look and they didn't really understand what the term is, but now pretty much everybody has gotten someone who's solicited them to either go to GoFundMe or Kickstarter or Indiegogo to help fund something, and that whole concept of getting a small amount of money from a lot of people, that's what Regulation A is. That's what this law is that lets us do this. The big difference is if you go to Kickstarter and you say, hey, I want to help you make a new product, and I'm going to give you money now for that new product that's going to come out in 6 months. You don't own part of that product. With this law, with what we're doing with Goldenseed, you can actually do a little bit of both. You can say to people, hey, you can invest $100 in our company. We can't give them, weed, not allowed, but we can give them, really cool T-shirts, and we can invite them to parties, where they can see the plants growing, and dinners in the warehouse, and big festivals like we're planning on doing in the future, and give away things that go along with this, in addition to the fact that you own stock. So you're right. It's still there that, think about it. And I know this is a pretty high-end aspiration, but, if someone invests $50,000 in the company, we do have people that have invested $50,000 in the company. If someone does, they can actually name their own strain of cannabis. So, that goes all the way down to, if you invest $100, you get this really cool card that shows that you're an owner of Goldenseed that looks like a black card and it feels like a black card, and you get to come to some of our parties, and all in between at different levels. We give away cool things that, like Scott said, it makes you feel like you're part of the family, and it makes you want to tell other people about it. It's not like, hey, I own a few shares of stock in some company. I'm not going to go tell people about it. I'm just looking at the stock ticker to see what it's worth today. You don't really get that with what we're doing. You get people that really get engaged and get excited about being part of the community and the family.
No, I think what you've done is, every investor, whether they're, the whole point of people investing is they want to be a part of what you have going on. And a lot of times it does stop with what's the return, and on this situation, somebody might invest $50,000. It may take, and I'm just remove Goldenseed from this comment because I'm not trying to implicate, but let's say it never returns anything, but that person got to go to a number of events that connected them to somebody else that made another investment that garnered them 10x of what they put into both places. So you're giving people opportunity to integrate into the cannabis space besides with just their money, which I think is pretty inventive. And I haven't seen anybody really been able to kind of, a lot of times you look at these situations and other people are doing crowdfunding style things and making promises that haven't necessarily come true. You guys kind of stay away from the promises and you really focus more on the lifestyle that you're building. And I just have to say, like, there are rare times, that you see a company like this in a frenetic industry come out with some stability as far as how people can get involved in the product that you're cranking out.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Absolutely. Let's pivot. May and October. What do those 2 months mean to you?
May and October.
May of 2019, you won a cup at the High Times event.
Oh, yeah.
And then October,
sorry.
No, it's okay. October, you guys took it again at the HempCon in Watsonville. I counted 9 strains that you guys have posted up on your site, some insane strains. I'm a big fan of Durban. Talk about the process. Cups are difficult. They're not, some claim are politically charged, some say whatever, but it always seems to be that when judges get together and nominate a strain or acknowledge that it provides a big boost, and that kind of gave you guys that same push. You're first out of the gate, you slammed down 2 cups real quick. And how did that, kind of impress people or encourage people to get involved, both on the investment side and the product, like carrying your product?
Yeah, I think it was really important, and we're really fortunate. J.R. Richardson, who's my business partner and co-founder, but what he's really known for is being a brilliant, really geneticist within the cannabis industry. I mean, he's been doing it for almost 40 years, and the guy's just around 50 years old. So it's pretty amazing. He came out of the Green Triangle up by Humboldt, and he's got completely sustainable practices that to him is religion. So when we're coming out with our first product, I mean, we wanted to go into the pre-roll market, and he had kind of this brilliant idea where we would extract the terpenes from that plant. And then once the pre-roll is done, we put a drop of the terpene back on the pre-roll and essentially come up with a terpene tip pre-roll joint. No one had really done that yet. And so the terpene enhances the aroma and the flavor of the joint. And literally we hit the gold cup at High Times right out of the gate and followed it up with the hemp cum. And if you're looking at crowded shelf space in the dispensary, it's much easier to get shelf space if you can kind of demonstrate that you've won these awards. They can taste your product. They can see how great it is. And it's really helped us. I mean, it helped us get shelf space, and it helped us get, I think, investment, obviously, as well. And it's just created a lot of credibility for our brand and going forward as we expand our SKUs in the dispensaries. So I think it was indispensable, really.
Yeah,
and I can echo what Scott said. It's funny that, think about it. You guys are both in California. I'm here on the other end of the world in Washington, D.C. I can't buy Goldenseed products here, and the fact that we've gotten, because, everyone knows if you grow it in California right now, you have to sell it in California. That's just, what's required. And just like if you grow it in Nevada, you have to sell it in Nevada. Well, we all know that's going to change over time, but right now that's the case. However, we're selling stock to people all over the country. As Scott said, we've sold it to, I think, 49 different states right now. Many of those people never have tasted or tried the product because they can't get it yet. They're, hoping, like we all are, that when this becomes federally able to move across state lines, Goldenseed will have a national footprint already because we've got investors everywhere, and it'll be easy to move into all the other states. But in the meantime, you hit the nail on the head, Scott. What gives you credibility on something that you've never been able to taste or buy yourself? They want awards. They want awards from a recognized, everyone sort of High Times. I've heard of High Times since, I was a teenager. High Times said, this is the best in Northern California, which is an area known for cannabis. Well, God, if I'm sitting in Alabama or I'm sitting in Kentucky or I'm sitting in Idaho or somewhere else where I can't buy this product, all of a sudden I'm thinking, this stuff must be really good. And that really does help with us getting investors across the country, not just in California where people can actually buy the product.
Yeah, I think when you get that kind of automatic acknowledged nod for the cup component and, for a specific product, I think that I've seen it happen to other brands. It just catapults them into the next level of people really being willing to be a part of it or search it out. I mean, I think in this new time that we're in, not only are we searching out content, but we're searching out, what we want to purchase. And I think when somebody gets that nod, it definitely makes people a little bit more comfortable to make that purchase. You mentioned the product that you took to the cup. This is JR obviously was messing around with terps before everybody really was aware how important terps are. A lot of people use botanical terps. They'll pump in a strawberry or a pineapple or whatever, and a lot of times they're not even fruit terps. They're synthetic terps. And while you still get the same effect, it's nice to hear people talking about drawing the terps off the plant, putting them back in the plant. I mean, those are things that should be common practice. And obviously, JR, it is a religion for him. I've known him for a lot of years. When you brought that to market for the first time, because right after you guys had your big party, I was down in LA at that particular moment, and we were walking through dispensaries, and I happened to walk in and saw, I want to say, Euflora in Santa Ana was carrying Goldenseed, and I was like, damn, these guys they're moving already, And what were the bud tenders or the buyers' reactions when you were selling them these pre-rolls that were reinfused with terps to kind of give it that little extra touch?
Well, there's one dispensary, one of the first ones we were in Santa Ana, I believe as well, called 420 Central. And we went down and they have a panel that has to sample new products that are going to be coming in their store. And they had 5 bud tenders that are on the panel. And we were told that we're the first unanimous selection ever to go into their store. So the reception of anyone that's I'm not a user myself, but I sample out, and obviously our reps sample out, but the response has been kind of universally, incredible. We've had some testimonials that have come in that are going to end up being part of our marketing that are I'm in a lot of other business, probably some of the best testimonials I've ever seen. So that part is really cool. And the other side is from our investors. We get a lot of people that are interested in the CBD side of it, and they're talking about what it's done from them from a medicinal standpoint, a health standpoint. So it's not just the THC side, which, recreational is very strong, but the medical side, I think, can be coming along as well. And I just wanted to circle back to your point on terpenes. JR started talking about those probably a long time ago. He started talking to me about them a couple of years ago. And while people in the store are all buying product based on THC content, he's a firm believer, and I think people that have the knowledge and are educating themselves, the terpene is really something that makes the experience even better than potentially THC percentage. It's the entourage effect of the whole taste and flavor and smell. And so again, I think he was way ahead of the game on that.
Well, and I agree. And I'll just add to that in the sense that I don't think we think the one good thing that came out of, the state's, intense testing process is to identify all the compounds in the plant and find out how they all work together. And as we move into this, everybody's doing this ancestry or DNA, 1, 2, 3 or whatever they're called. They now are starting to look at how can we genetically map, cannabis to people's specific needs. But you're right. Like so many times I'm in a dispensary and, the bud tender gets asked what to buy and they're like, oh man, this has got the most THC. It's like, 22%, 24%, whatever, occasional unicorn, 32%. And it doesn't have, because that's how we've been conditioned to buy alcohol is like the more potent the
Right.
alcohol is, the more of an inebriation effect it takes in a quicker period of time when in reality, like I've smoked weed that was like upwards of 28, 32%. And that really didn't get me that high. And then I smoked something that's like at 18% and it's like, I'm counting the cracks in the ceiling, And so it's really about how your body, it reacts to the plant. And I think, we're just getting started on how we can unpack so many different things from this plant, which is a good pivot because I want to talk a little bit about your hemp side of the business and how do
Right.
you bifurcate that? I mean, is it all cannabis based hemp or is it industrial rated hemp? Is it commercial? What type of hemp are you guys putting out there?
It's based on the cannabis plant. Again, this is where JR's genetics come in because he started way back when with Ringo up in the Green Triangle and got some really good genetics through a friend. And for probably the last 12 or 13 years, he's been cross breeding and bringing up the CBD percentages. But what's really unique about his hemp is that the terpene profiles are off the chart. I mean, I've been told typical THC or terpene percentages in hemp might be as high as in the 30%. He's had some test out at 70%.
Wow.
And so the flavor profiles and kind of the strength of the terpenes in that, if we want to talk about smokable hemp, I mean, I think he's got some of the best genetics in the country.
And that's just straight no THC infused, right? That's just the one that can be sold everywhere without regulation.
Exactly. It meets the THC threshold. It's below that.
And is that the CBD Grind one that you have?
Yeah. That it's on our website. That's THC.
Gotcha. I mean, because here's the deal. Like I, just like JR, have smoked weed most of my adult life. And I am now finding myself using other componentries. I'm doing 1-to-1 tinctures now. I'm doing level pro tab CBGs. I think the people that are, as you look at this as a wellness component, those are the things that I think people are going to really, I think as we move into this next phase after we come out of this, pandemic, if you will, that people will be looking, that people found things while this period was going on to help them with either anxiety, eating, nausea, sleeping, whatever, that they're going to carry that forward. And it's, unique times when we go into these kind of situations, most people focus on the negative components. How is COVID affecting you guys and how are you guys spinning it into a positive to continue getting good medicine out to the people that need it?
Yeah, for us, we're really fortunate to be in this sector because I'm in the several other sectors that have been impacted tremendously. And so being an essential industry, agricultural, we're able to continue into cannabis. And as everyone has seen lately, cannabis sales are up quite a bit. More people are going to the stores and are buying more product. And so we feel that the cannabis side of it, just purely in terms of sales and potential, this has actually helped it. And we're no means minimizing the problems that are out there, but we get a lot of people talking about how it has helped them with their anxiety. It has helped them sleep. I mean, I use it for both of those purposes. I did before and I do more now. So I think this industry, fortunately, is going to be able to continue. It's going to be able to continue to help people.
I agree. And you guys you did an interview with Bloomberg, and in that interview, you made a pretty bold claim. They asked you what they thought, when would we see federal legalization of cannabis? And I think you threw out within the next 5 years. And I think if you would have said when that interview was done, had I heard it right out of the gate, I would have probably doubted you a little bit, only because the federal government hasn't figured out how to make all the money on it yet. And so that's why they're still paused on like, how do they get all their buddies to make more money than the people that started it? But once cannabis was deemed essential across all these states, I mean, for such a small designation, it was such a huge win for the cannabis space. When you guys we're sitting back watching this go down, we're pretty involved with dispensary level, what activities that happen. We have a couple of Facebook groups that we're a part of. At the first of it, they weren't recognizing cannabis. Places like San Francisco was shutting it down. I believe San Diego shut it down initially, and they've all since reversed. In fact, Berkeley passed something not just the other day that was like only curbside pickup to where now they can do delivery again. Like, how is that designation of from, and I want to hear from both of you on this question. How does that designation of being an essential brand play into, or an essential industry play into your guys' greater picture of where your brand is going?
Well, I think it's, again, we try to be kind of thought leaders on this. And I do agree with what you said earlier, that designation, if you take a look at the percentage of people that believe that this product is helpful, I mean, it's across the country. As more and more states legalize it, that just does a lot of credibility for cannabis and for CBD. I think that will help make things go quicker. And I think being out there and talking about it and being at the forefront of it, we're luckily able to get in terms of a lot of media exposure. I think it helps a lot, not only the industry, but the brand.
I think one other thing that's always been a big part of the stock offering and I love the fact that, this is so important to JR and Scott and everyone at Goldenseed, is that there's a huge educational component. Dan, you hit the nail on the head a couple of times of, people didn't understand about terpenes before, and people don't understand about, for example, hemp cigarettes, smokable hemp, I think is something that's going to be a big product in the future. But right now, people don't really know what it is. But there's a lot of these things that go on, and Goldenseed takes a really, really proactive approach to educating people because we want people to learn and understand the products and things that are going on. So interestingly, probably as many people are listening to this podcast over the next few days, the day today when we're actually making this happen, we are finalizing, literally as we speak, a nationwide survey that Goldenseed commissioned to find out about people using cannabis during this pandemic. And you'll see it in the news. I'm sure you'll be reading about it, and it'll be on our website. But it's really cool because I've gotten a little peek under the curtain of what's going on, and it's what you suspect. It's that people are smoking more, cannabis right now. People are using it for different reasons, some to help relieve anxiety, some to help sleep better, and what have you. And there's going to be some really interesting findings from this that we're going to be releasing over the next couple of days, all because, again, all the news is so negative right now, and it should be. There's a lot of bad things going on, but people are looking for interesting information and a little glimmer of hope. And I think that the way that the cannabis industry has been treated as an essential part of the economy is really heartening. And I really do believe that Scott hit the nail on the head. I think the first time Scott and I talked about this, when we met to talk about possibly doing this, he said, I know this is going to be legal in 5 years. And I believe him. The fact that the SEC qualified this stock offering, a federal agency, that's another great step. I mean, we want to be at the forefront of that, but we all do know this is coming. It's going to happen.
Do you think, though, we got to be cautious because we all got super hot and heavy about Prop 64, and in reality, everybody wishes we were still under Prop 215. I think one of the things that is scary for me over the next 5 years if this is to happen is, in reality, the scheduling of the drug, it obviously means very little to the consumer at the moment. You schedule it up to 1 or whatever and legalize it. We'll probably see an uptick, but I think, in the state of California, we saw every state that's opened up with cannabis has seen a surge of new users. But I think the biggest thing we need is safe banking. If we're an essential business and we know that, that business is up. I mean, I have friends that have had to walk in, their payments to the state board in cash because there's nowhere they can bank $300,000 in cash and not have it locked up for some reason. And so the biggest thing I think we need is safe banking. I think we're under the guise, or we're in the spirit of the arrangement that cannabis is a safe mechanism for healing and even for just being intoxicated. But I think the first step we need to make is safe banking. Bit of a tangent, but I feel like I'm nervous as we go into this next election cycle with either side that gets in, because nobody's really, Democrat nor Republican, has been a big champion specifically in any party for their space. There's been players in that space, but it seems like they have to leave politics to be able to espouse their true beliefs on the cannabis plant, like AKA John Boehner, And so when you guys are looking at the future and you're looking at this next 5 years, are you starting to identify certain markets that you want to participate in? I would imagine leading with that hemp component, you have a little bit of an hand on different areas, but are there areas in the country that you're considering expanding to, or are you going to figuratively wait until it's federally legal and you can transport your product from California out to the other states?
Yeah, the way I look at it right now is that California is the largest legal market in the world, and the fact that it's not federally legal is currently a real benefit to us and probably other people in the state, because it allows us to really solidify our infrastructure, really get our large cultivation going, really establish our brand, and I think we'll be much better prepared to go national because of that. So not right now. I mean, we have been approached by people that may want to license the brand in other states, but we're really, really focused on, growing our infrastructure and growing our presence in California, because if it does go legal 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, if we're really got our base and our foundation set up well, we'll be really primed to go, export. The iconic brand, the California brand, it's almost like a Napa Cabernet. I think people will identify with that from other states.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. I don't think people are going to be, and this is nothing against a great state like Texas, but I don't think people are going to be sitting around going, boy, I can't wait to get some of that Texas weed. Right. People are going to be at Texas. Texas is a wonderful place, but it's not known for growing, marijuana or cannabis. And California always has been known for it. So when you can cross state lines, having an iconic California brand that's already established is going to be a huge, huge step up for a huge, and it's great for us. Also, again, going back to the stock offering, one of the reasons for doing this is to establish a base of investors in every state. And the fact will be, I've seen this with other clients where I've done similar things, if we end up having a huge number of investors in New York State or in some particular state, that might be a place that we would want to expand to quicker than another, because already having a lot of boots on the ground that are going to help us promote, go to dispensaries and say, hey, I own part of this company. Why aren't you carrying the award-winning Goldenseed? It's available now. That's something that no one else is going to have, at least as of right now. And that's a big leg up for us, too, when we can expand into those places where we have large pockets of investors.
No, it's a well-built ecosphere of, I often tell people that the true brands are still being established right now. I mean, you have people that have jumped out there and focused on their marketing, focused on their forward-facing messaging, being on brand on social. Maybe they're even building out in-store kiosks that they manage on behalf of those people. But the customer is still, I don't want to say ignorant, but they're severely undereducated still in an industry that's moving so fast. And unless you live, eat, sleep this thing every day, you're not gonna be able to stay up on everything. And so to your point, everybody in a market like this, having watched the .com boom that took place, there's always this frenetic activity behind everything, and sometimes businesses get distracted by shiny objects and tend to not stay on course. I think that's the hardest thing in the space, is to stay disciplined, to know when to, actually the good old saying, make sure your eyes aren't bigger than your stomach, and focus on the things that are critical to what you need to do to build a base. Because in reality, we're still in an emerging space. We're still barely even a toddler, even if that, as we look forward into the next decade of where cannabis is going to go. And, you got to play to your strong points. And so it's refreshing, as, I'm hearing this when you guys, that you're very focused on making sure that you're not just thumbtacking areas, but you're driving a nail into it, and assuming that nail can be placed in other states based on desire, you can replicate it. And I think that's where most of this space is just focused on volume, selling, valuation, but not a lot of them are focused on paying attention to the traditional business ethics of how do I grow a business properly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shiny objects out there, and some of them, we've been drawn to some of them, but we try to just stay disciplined and focus on our stuff. The other thing that I think that's out there, because we get approached all the time, is a lot of the brands that are in the market that people know about right now. they're getting weed, they're buying flower from someone else, they're co-packing it. I mean, they're spending all their dollars on marketing and distribution.
Yep.
That's another business model, but it's very important from us. I mean, we actually even have a worm farm. So we start by creating the soil, and then we got our plants, we do our own processing. We just recently started co-packing to save some cost, but our product is our product, and we stand behind it, and we think it's very high quality. But I would be uncomfortable just going out and buying flour from other people. I guess people do that, but it's definitely not the way that we do it.
Well, you can track the COA. That's the funniest part. If people just started tracking COAs and going back to the farms, they'd see that it's all branding and back to building there's a difference between working on your branding and building a brand, in my mind. I think anybody can have branding and present themselves in a certain way. It's a whole nother program to build a brand. And you mentioned Coca-Cola earlier. That's a company that most people would say, oh, their branding is insane. And it's like, no, not really. Their brand is what's insane. Their branding amplifies the brand, right? And so for you to make a note to that is warming in my heart, because the state most of the consumers don't realize that they're buying the same weed just under different names sometimes.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment. It's really interesting because one of the things that Scott and his team decided early on when we talked about going out and doing the stock offering was we wanted the point of entry for people to invest to be low. We wanted it to be $100 is, again, it's especially in today's economic times. And when I say today's, I mean of the last 2 weeks, every $100 matters. We all know that. But still, people can afford to invest $100. Not everyone, but most people can, and know that it's not going to break them one way or another. The good news is, we could have gone out and said it's $1,000 minimum investment and just gotten, probably raised more money. But that wasn't what this was about. This was always about raising capital from people who then become part of your brand and help us expand that brand identity. So you hit the nail on the head. We could have probably raised 10 times as much money by making the minimum investment 10 times what it is, but we would lose out on every one of those everyday people who, just wants to be a part of this and wants to help build that brand. And, Coca-Cola became iconic because so many people drink it and love it. And we need to have the same thing. So many people drink, drinking our Coca-Cola, but also owning part of that Coca-Cola brand in an early stage. God, if we could go back and buy a few shares of Coca-Cola when it started, I think we'd all be the happiest people alive.
Right.
That's what we're giving people the opportunity to do here. I use this analogy all the time, and if when Mark Zuckerberg was sitting in his dorm room at Harvard and him and his buddies came up with this concept of Facebook, none of them knew what it was going to become. None of them knew it was going to become a multi-billion-dollar company. People invested in that company early on. And the funny thing is, the only people who could invest in that company early on were rich people. You couldn't, if you were just a friend of his who happened to live in the dorm next to him once they got going, you couldn't buy shares in Facebook. It was illegal. This new law that lets us bring in people now for $100 to own part of Goldenseed didn't exist when Facebook was created. The only people that got rich on Facebook were people that were venture capitalists and had a bunch of money to begin with. I'm not suggesting Goldenseed is going to become Facebook or that people are going to get rich if they invest $100. I would never make that claim. Every investment is risky, and every investment, it's possible that you could lose all your money. Hell, you bought a bunch of shares of Facebook today. It could go out of business. Remember MySpace? Facebook could go out of business in 10 years and your stock could be worthless. We know that's always a risk. But the reality is this law lets people get in on an early stage that they weren't allowed to do up until 2015. And just imagine if you had that ability to go, I'd like to put $1,000 into Facebook 2 weeks after they created it. You couldn't do that. Now you can. And that's what's really cool about this law.
No, and congratulations to you guys for putting it into play and actually executing. And just like, it's funny you say, oh, $100, not a minute. It's like buying weed. Like, I don't know if you all ever bought weed in the illicit market before we were necessarily legal, but that trust component is the number one way you stay in business, whether you're buying it or selling it. the people only did business with people that they trusted. If they felt sketchy with people, they would just avoid them. So it is somewhat like, along the same lines of like you guys built trust with people. And because you built that trust and because you have people willing to take small risks, who knows who might come in and drop $100,000 in or 200,000 or who isn't going to, maybe help fund a territory. I want to pivot as we kind of start to wrap up. The way you guys grow, it's everybody right now is so hyped on the indoor play. You guys are sun grown, right?
Yeah, we're mixed like greenhouse. Santa Cruz County, you have to be inside either a greenhouse or indoor. What I like to say, and again, this is part of the education from JR, is in a light deprivation environment, we can kind of get the best of both worlds. We can control the environment a lot like the indoor does, but we can also open it up and it can get sunlight and you can get the wind and, it gets changes in temperature. And we think that combination, we think ultimately this should be as valuable as indoor. In fact, we've had people test it out at the farm and they said they could sell it as indoor. But that's the space that we're in and how we grow.
Well, it's the reason why I think this region has been so successful is because, if you've lived in Santa Cruz your whole life, everything you've done has somewhat come in touch with cannabis. If you're in the scene, right? If you're in the surfing scene, the skating scene, the music scene, you're a student, cannabis and Santa Cruz have been synonymous, just like Humboldt and that whole area. It's like Santa Cruz is
right.
the sister to Napa Valley, if you will. And it's interesting to see how much money was invested into the Salinas Valley because that was more prone to building. It's a totally different type of climate. I mean, I think when you said earlier, once you guys can go nationally and your product can come from where it's grown the best, we have this unique atmosphere, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, that allows the plant to be maximized. In fact, there's certain strains that are really hard to grow in anywhere else besides our area. And so it's neat.
Right.
It's neat to have seen you guys lock into that. And you were going to.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just think, right now we are perceived in Santa Cruz, fortunately, to be one of the premium parts in the state. And it's really interesting because our distribution started in San Diego. There's such a premium in Southern California placed on either Humboldt area or Santa Cruz. And
Right.
we do think that will be resonating nationally. I mean, you said earlier that, Santa Cruz is identified with the surf, the skate, music. That's a big part of our brand. We're bringing in people to invest and be part of our brand across kind of the cultural spectrum. So we have musicians. We're about ready to have a partnership with a really prominent surfer family, skate family. We have Mike Dirnt from Green Day as part of the company. We have ex-professional athletes. So we want to be very diverse and culturally relevant, and that's a big part of building our brand.
Well, you said it earlier, the lifestyle component, and you pounded that home on the Bloomberg interview that lifestyle is important. And, whether, again, going back to the good old Coca-Cola, people would question when you say, oh, it's a lifestyle brand, but when you build a brand, part of that componentry, it's not just one thing. A big part of that is the lifestyle, and it is the things, it is the people that have invested in you, and it's the areas that are embracing of you is what defines, your best brand. And I think as you guys are kind of navigating through these still infancy stages of the space, it's going to be fun to watch you grow and to expand into different areas. And I'm sure you've got other categories that you're thinking about moving into besides just doing flower. And I think some of the best businesses are built under the most duress. If you look at the last big crash, you had Airbnb, you had Uber, you had a couple other people that came out of that downturn in the economics. There's going to be a lot of people that fail right now. Some of the bigger companies, Aurora, Canopy, they're not doing so well in the stock market. And a lot of that was because it was so early and such bloated valuations that there was no way those pro formas could ever be hit because the market didn't go in the direction that everybody thought it was going to go into. So you guys are in such a great spot right now, and it's so rad to get an opportunity to interview you guys as you're on your way up. I just hope that we can circle back down the road when you're famous for doing this kind of stuff, and you'll still remember good old Cannabis Karaoke.
We really love being on here. Kendall, do you want to give all the handles?
Yeah, the easiest way to learn more about the company and to learn about the investment is to go to own, like owning something, OWN, goldenseed.com. And literally there's videos there. There's an explanation of how you can invest. There's interesting information about the company. Literally everything you could find is there. And then also our normal website is seed.com, where you can get that information. And of course, we are on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all of the other social media handles. Probably the easiest way to get to those is to go to the website and click on one of the buttons there rather than me trying to give you a whole lot of handles here on the site. I always tell people, go to owngoldenseed.com. That is the best place to go to get information.
And we'll make sure to post it. Your Instagram handle is @Goldenseed. And so we'll post all those things on the website. Man, just really great talking to both of you. Thank you for taking the time. Look forward to seeing your success. Please give my love and congratulations to JR as well. He's an old school friend of mine, and I look forward to seeing where you guys are going in the future.
Thank you so much, Dan. All right.
That's a wrap. Thank you for listening to this edition of Cannabis Karaoke, another kick-ass podcast about all things cannabis. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and our website, cannabiskaraoke.tv. And if you or someone you know would like to be on the show, please hit the book your interview button on the right. Cannabis Karaoke. Grab the mic and tell your story.